this is going to be a terrific game. Oh, right down to the ground.
He's done it.
It's a beautiful shot.
And there it is.
The atmosphere here is electric. That'll sort the game going.
You make me feel so alive.
Good morning, everybody. You join us as the players from two fine cricketing nations arrive at Sahara Kingsmead for the start of a much-anticipated Test series. They go at each other very hard, these guys. The Australians visitors, of course, against Faf du Plessis' team, who have just come off a fine Test match series win against India. Good weather here at Kingsmead. Quite hot, steamy, typically team steamy, I think you'd call it. And as I say, we're all excited about the prospects ahead. Sunfoil Test Series, 4 matches here. The first time that 4 Test matches have been played between the countries in the series since 1969-70. One of South Africa's most famous victories ever, a 4-0 hammering of the Australians. And Australia since then, of course, very successful here in South Africa, but not so successful at home, where South Africa have been strangely successful. Hard to explain that. Along with me, Sean Pollock and Graham Smith, who can explain just about anything when we ask them to. Good morning, guys.
Morning, Mark. Nice to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. I was just saying what an exciting Test series this is. There's lots of reasons for that. There's a sort of sense of the same style and attitude to the cricket both countries play.
Yeah, and very similar surfaces. What you'll find in South Africa, you often will find in Australia, both coming off good wins, obviously against England in the Ashes, and South Africa beating India, who's #1 in the world. So they'll be quietly confident and looking forward to doing some battle. It's always really competitive, isn't it? And it's really cutthroat, intense cricket when these two nations play against each other.
Have you always found that competition against the Australians the toughest competition that you've played?
Well, certainly touring Australia, yes. You know, you really grow up in that environment from a media perspective, a crowd perspective, and a cricketing perspective. The game is played hard. It's as Polly said, very similar styles, very similar upbringings in many ways. And you know, as a South African, it's the one nation that your nation really wants to beat. So you do carry a little bit of extra pressure into these series and expectations. But I always loved playing these games. You know, you play the game hard, and there's a real fairness and understanding off the field also.
Let's have a look at the schedule. We're starting here in Durban, but we move on to Port Elizabeth, to Cape Town and the Wanderers. And each of these grounds, Sean, has their own characteristic.
They do 3 coastal conditions, obviously for the first 3, and then up to the half-veld, where you maybe get a little bit more movement through the air, and it'll be a little bit quicker than what you'd experience at the other grounds. But yeah, lots of history steeped in Durban, Port Elizabeth and Cape Town, and Johannesburg as well. So it should be nicely set up, and let's hope it goes right down to that last one, and that last Test match counts to decide.
We're talking a lot about momentum in sport. How important is making a good start here? Today, tomorrow, those days. How important are they?
I think it's crucial in this series. I think Australia have had slightly better preparation coming into this Test match. South Africa have had a lot of injuries. A one-day series against India that didn't go well. A lot of lack of confidence, I think, in certain players. A lot of players that haven't had any cricket for a couple of weeks through the injury. So I think South Africa, the first 2 or 3 days in this Test match are key for them. They have to get themselves into the game. They have to compete and find themselves, you know, day 3 with a chance.
Head-to-head, it's extraordinary that one team is having more success in the other's country. South Africa have gone 3 times in a row to win in Australia. Australia have had great success here.
Yeah, we need to sort that out. It needs to start with this series in particular. But yeah, I mean, obviously through the isolation, there was many years of just watching Test cricket unfold. And then when Australia have come back, they've been such a strong unit in the 90s. So they did dominate here in particular. Let's see if South Africa can try and turn that around. It's been some good performances, as we saw the last one there in Australia, beating them convincingly, but they'll have to get their wits about them to get a very motivated Australian side. You get the impression that they're raring to go.
It's that the South African squad. They're talking about the extra batsmen, Graham, not playing the 4-seamers. Do you think that's the way they'll go?
It's the way I would go. I think that South Africa's batting has been, you know, through that Test series, I think Quinton de Kock lacked a little bit of form. I think they found themselves a better light at certain times in that series. I also think the spinner is going to play a big role in this Test series. I think Maharaj is going to bowl a lot of overs here in Durban. I don't think they need that extra seamer. I think the 3 seamers can do enough work and damage. with Maharaj playing a really key role. I think that the team who can bat best in this series is going to win the series.
The challenge has always been for South Africa is can you go and trust Vernon Philander to bowl you 20, 25 overs in a day, and that's why they've gone away from sometimes the three seamers and a spinner. I think he's fit enough now, and I think they're willing to back him.
Quick word on Morne Morkel, who's announced that this will be his last Test series.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't he? I mean, he's a wonderful player, but it's a big series to end on, and I'm sure he'll be motivated. Even if he's got a niggle or three, it'll be Voltarans or Cataflams. He'll be out there giving his all for his country because he wants to end off with a nice win against Australia, and then he'll move on to other ventures.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the family pressures and the night of travel, they do catch up with you, but he's been a wonderful servant as a cricketer, and to watch him grow and develop into the player that he is today has been incredible to watch. But it's his personality and his characteristics and, you know, his quirky nature that I think has won everybody over in the cricketing world, and I think that's what's going to be missed.
I think that's a beautiful summing up, and cricket needs it, I think, in the modern era. The bigger the character, and in some ways the more quirky he is, the greater the interest in the man. Morne Morkel's final Test series begins here today in Durban. OK, another interesting character is South Africa's relatively new coach. He's a Barbadian, of course, super quick bowler in his day, had success over here, had success playing county cricket in England, and of course was a favourite son of Barbados. A moment ago, Mike Hazeman was with Otis Gibson.
Otis, thanks for your time. For a very fast bowling-minded coach, this must be an exciting series for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think probably two of the best attacks in world cricket at the moment. You know, they've just come off of a very good series win against England. We've just done the same against India. So it's set up to be a cracking series, I think.
You're a deep thinker. What concerns do you have?
You know, look, I think the wickets against India, our batsmen weren't able to show their best skills. These ones might be slightly different, so hopefully our batsmen will come into the series a lot more than they did against India. And our bowlers probably had it easy a little bit, you know, with the help from those pitches. These pitches, it seems, will be a little bit different again, so hopefully we can make that adaptation quite quickly.
Your skipper's back, so what sort of a difference does it make to have Faf back in the setup, in the change room, and obviously in the batting lineup?
Look, he's been massive. He's been a massive loss, certainly in the one-day series. I'm also I like Test cricket, so it's good to see the white clothes back on and a little bit more technique and thought going into cricket and stuff like that. But Faf has been a massive loss for us in the one-day series. He's huge coming back into the dressing room. His presence in the dressing room and his presence in the batting lineup, you know, lends itself to people being a little bit more calm, the way we go about our cricket, and his leadership on the field as well. So, you know, so he's back. He's going to be a massive influence on the team going forward in this series. So I think he's got a massive part to play in the series on the whole.
Where are Australia different than other nations?
Well, look, they obviously their bowling has been excellent for a long time now. You know, led by Stark and Hazelwood and those guys. They've got pace, which we have pace as well. But their batting is also very strong. You know, Warner plays his natural game up front, and he's quite aggressive. And then Steve Smith has been in an unbelievable purple patch for quite a while. So, you know, we know that it's not going to be an easy series, but you know, we're up for the challenge.
Faf du Plessis and how much he's missed when he isn't around. So we know the impact of the captain. In the old days, the captain had complete control of a cricket team. These days, guys, the coach has a much bigger impact. How much impact should he have? Have they got it about right with Otis?
Well, you'd hope that the balance is right. You don't know how the relationship's gone as yet. He's only been in the job for a short period of time, but I think they bounce ideas off each other. You get that feeling when you sit and discuss things with them in the middle of the pitch. But I mean, at the end of the day, once you go on that field, you have to be able to make the calls, and ideally you want to be going on with the team that you want as well, to try and compete against these teams that you face, the best in the world. So I hope that relationship's good, and he's a massive player for South Africa with the bat and his leadership. And South Africa missed him sorely in that one-day series, and it was pretty evident.
Graham, I always thought that your relationship with Mickey Arthur was about right. The balance was about right.
Yeah, the balance is the key. I mean, it's an understanding between the captain and the coach, and kind of where you play your parts within the environment. It's very difficult in modern day times for one person to carry that can, with the amount of cricket that you play, travelling, all the different squads, all the different things that you have to pull together. Also, that's add the politics to that, the stresses off the field that a captain's got to deal with. So, I mean, myself and Mickey and Gary, I thought were the two coaches that I had the best best working relation. It was honest, open style, and we always knew where we kind of fitted in. You know, maybe the coach played a bit more of a role in the build-up. You played a bit more of a behind-the-scenes role. And as you got close to game day, the captain starts to step up, and he's got to lead his team.
Yes, Gary Kirsten, of course, exceptional at his job on the back of Mickey Arthur's performance. Right, this isn't all about the South Africans. The Australians in good form after the Ashes. Steve Smith in the form of his life, a powerful bowling attack, a good spinner. Here with their thoughts on the Aussies, and with us for the whole tour are Alan Border and Brendan Julian.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, got AB with me, and AB, geez, I'm looking forward to this Test series. I know those guys have been talking about South Africa. Been a little bit of limited preparations for the Australians, but first up, how do you see this series?
Oh, look, it's a very exciting series. Play a very similar format of cricket, don't we? A very aggressive fast bowling unit, some quality spin, good exciting batting, but some fragility about it at times. So, you know, all the ingredients for a very good Test series.
All right, let's talk about some of the preparation, because we know there's only been one lead-up game into this preparation. And also from David Warner's point of view, opening the batting vice-captain, played in that T20 one-day series in New Zealand, so he hasn't had any preparation. Didn't have the best summer by his standards in Australia. How to see him?
Well, not ideal preparation for David Warner, but he started to get some form towards the end of that 2020 series against New Zealand, so that hopefully that holds him in good stead here. The rest of the players have been here for, what, a couple of weeks now, in net situations and playing the game in Benoni. So, you know, it's as good a preparation as we've had for quite some time going into a series here. So, fingers crossed they take their best form into it.
Look, I think it's most important, for, as we say, is David Warner up the top of the order, but I'm also with Cameron Bancroft, his opening partner as well. He's had a couple of opening partners, David Warner. Bancroft, to his credit, played all the Test matches in Australia, but do you see that as a vital part of this Test series, getting off to a good start at the top of the order?
Oh, it goes without saying, and in all series, you know, if you get runs from your top order, it's like gold. And against a quality fast bowling attack like South Africa do have, you know, runs at the top order are really key. So David Warner and Cam Bancroft vital in that opening role, take the shine off the ball, get us off to a good start, and then the rest of the batting can flow on from there.
We can't really see too many differences from the last Test match in Sydney against England, can we, AB? You definitely go with Nathan Lyon. It looks like this pitch is probably going to turn a bit. He's going to have a big role. And the big quick bowler. It's great to see Pat Cummins back into South Africa after that debut in 2011. So the firepower that a lot of people have talked about is certainly evident here today.
Yeah, look, if they stay fit and healthy, I mean, it's going to be a cracking series, you know, with both sets of fast bowling, but particularly the Aussie boys, you know, they show what they can do in that Ashes contest, and then backed up by Nathan Lyon. I agree with you. I think this pitch will turn a little bit as the game progresses.
Yep.
It's drier down one end, the other, a little bit of grass covering. So, you know, it's a good surface, and it should suit everyone. You know, everyone should get something out of this type of pitch.
I'll tell you one battle I'm looking forward to is probably Kagiso Rabada up against Stephen Smith. We know Stephen Smith, the #1 batsman in the world at the moment, but it's going to have to get to the stage where Australia have got to stop relying on Stephen Smith, because he has been the backbone of the batting for a long, long time.
Well, he had a phenomenal summer, didn't he, in Australia, and the last 12, 18 months has been incredible. So, yes, they need to hunt as a pack, the Australian batting order in particular, so everyone has to contribute. They've had their moments, haven't they? But really it's been Steve Smith as the shining light. So that contest between Stephen and Rabada in particular, but all the South African bowling, is going to be key to their success and probably Australia's success as well.
All right, Stephen Smith, they're warming up here on day one of this first Test match in Durban. We've heard from the South African coach, Otis Gisman. Now let's hear from Darren Lehmann, the Australian coach.
Got Darren Lehmann with me, the Australian coach. Darren, preparation-wise, you've come over later, but are you happy with the boys' progress? Ready to go?
Yeah, they're ready to go, mate. Obviously, we had a great tour game with Benoni. Trained well, prepared well, and now looking forward to a great series.
Full of confidence, coming off a good win in the Ashes?
Yeah, we are. Obviously, flying high at the moment, but different series, different tour, quality side. You know, we played well in the Ashes, and it was a great series, so I'm expecting the same here. It's going to be a challenging series when you play South Africa in their home patch. So for us, we'll have to start the series well.
What are you expecting from South Africa?
A lot of fight like normal. Two sides going at it. It's going to be a great contest between bat and ball. Two quality bowling attacks. So really the batters are going to have to perform well in this series.
A lot has been talked about this fast bowling attacks of the both teams. You looking for some fireworks?
I think it'll be great to watch. I mean, the spectacle between Australia and South Africa has been unbelievable over the last few series. So expect nothing different in this series. And it's really who copes with the pressure the best who'll come out on top.
Lastly, a settled side. You already announced your team. You guys are pretty settled after the Ashes?
Yeah, obviously a bit easier. We named it a couple of days ago. So interesting to see what South Africa do. Can't worry about them. We've got to play well.
And a last look at the surface?
Looks pretty good. A little bit slow. It probably won't bounce as much as a normal wicket, but at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we just got to get on with it.
Okay, thanks for your thoughts. All the best for the tour.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, Sean Pollock there with Darren Lehmann. He's always up pace, isn't he? Darren Lehmann always got a smile on his face. Nothing seems to faze him too much.
Oh, he's got a great attitude, hasn't he? And he's done very well in that dressing room sense. Getting the boys prepared, keeps everything on an even keel. He fires up at certain times, but generally speaking, he's pretty cool, calm, collected.
All right, there you have it, Darren Lehmann, the coach for Australia and marker. Looking forward to this sun just starting to come out.
This got a little warmer in the last 15 minutes, BJ. A quick question about this settled side thing. Darren Lehmann and you in your chat there putting a premium on that. Is that a bit of a myth in sport, or is it real that the same 11 match after match is a good thing?
I think it's a good thing. Everyone knows their role, they know where they're required, what they have to do, and we just look back to the history of these two teams. When we were in Australia last time, they were as unsettled as they could have been. I think there was 3 or 4 debutants that made their debut. They didn't look like a cohesive unit, and it all looked a bit of a mess, in all honesty. And they started to talk about this is the new brigade, and we're going to move forward with it. A lot of those guys aren't playing anymore. It's gone down to a settled unit, guys, experienced players who know what they have to do to perform at this level.
All right, but then I might put another argument forward and say, if you persevere with someone like Cam Bancroft, who's having a difficult run, is that A, fair to him, and B, fair to the others?
Well, he's had a bit of a break, hasn't he, from being at the forefront of the Ashes. I think he obviously had a very difficult tour there against England. England had the best of him. So this is probably his last opportunity to make a play in this Australian team, and he will know that. So I think he'll be motivated. I think the selectors have shown faith. Obviously, the role that he's played in the environment has been good, and the captain and the coach have felt that he's the type of player that they want to back. They believe that he will come good. So I think that obviously the Australian hierarchy and selectors have shown confidence in him, and hopefully he'll repay them.
All right, guys, thank you. Don't go away. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to get stuck into that cricket pitch there, have a real good look at it, because it's the pitch that matters in these big events. Hello once again from Sahara Kingsmead in Durban. A few people arriving at the ground, some Australian supporters to the local hotels this morning, very excited about the prospect of seeing cricket live here in South Africa. I don't know that it'll be that big a crowd here today, but I think it's predicted big for the weekend. I'm about in the middle actually now with Graham Smith and Sean Pollock on the pitch. I mentioned that the pitch was the thing in these big series, and the constant search for the right balance between bat and ball is a difficult one for ground staff the world over. This pitch used to have so much life in it, Sean, but you're telling me that, and it looks, I have to say, as if it's lost some of that life.
Yeah, it's not the prettiest looking surface we've seen here at Kingsmead, to put it lightly, but there's also different grasses. On the surface you've got 2 pitches here, and the one over that side are Bayview grass, and that's a lighter kind of leaf and offers some nice pace and bounce. This is the local grass called Kingsmead grass, and it's a little bit more coarse, but it does hold the pitch together just a little bit better. So I think that's, I mean, it's mowed pretty low, more grass.
It is, isn't it? I mean, you get a little area like this in the crease, and there's much more grass there, and it's a little bit more live than the grass that's actually on the surface, which is kind of rolled into the soil.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's a thicker covering down this side compared to that side. I think the spinners will bowl into the Umgani end. There's also these little puzzle pieces that might start to pop out as the test match goes on, but it doesn't ever really crumble here at Kingsmead. It tends to stay together with the humidity that you've got around.
Well, let's walk and talk, Graham, as you give us your view. Let's go and have a look
so
at
much
that
talk about the 2 sets of fast bowlers on either side, but this pitch in general has lost its pace and bounce. It's become very slow. Actually, the factors of winning here have become reverse swing, spin, and you still will get a little bit of bounce, but it'll be slow bounce. So I think the teams who can post totals early on in first innings on the surface, and then maybe it'll deteriorate slightly, spin will play a role and reverse swing will come into the game.
Now look, Graham, I mean, that's Sean's point, isn't it? This is much barer. There's almost a subcontinental look about it.
Well, I mean, Durban's become subcontinental, hasn't it, Polly?
Well, it's taking more turn, and it's definitely slow. Subcontinental, not quite. Get a little bit more bounce than you do in the subcontinent. Invariably, there's more bounce bowling from the Umgani end into this grass. You'll see the ball standing up, and the ball staying a little bit lower down, bowling from the old Fort end, coming into this area. So maybe Stark, that side, trying to get it to swing in, and Cummins trying to get it to bounce.
From a batting perspective, though, it will have that slow, steepish bounce. So early on in the innings, it just takes a couple of balls to get used to that. Leave well, don't get dragged into anything outside your eye line, get yourself in. But it is the type of surface that if you get in on, it's one you can cash in, especially first innings.
So when you say that slow, steepish bounce, do you mean that kind of tennis bally bounce?
I think that tennis bally bounce, you know, often you can get just feel for the ball. The other thing about here is the slip catches. Your slip quarter needs to be a couple of steps up because it doesn't tend to fly at the slip quarter, it tends to drop on you. So you want to come up. That's an interesting thing for South Africa. They've got a lot of finger issues, so they're going to have a whole new slip quarter, and then catching in this series is going to be key.
In general, conditions here in Durban can be demanding. You've got the humidity, which saps the players, and then they talk the old myth about the tide late in the afternoon and all that stuff.
Yeah, the tide coming in, we've been told that it has an effect, and we used to tell the opposition a lot about how the effect it's going to have, but I'm not 100% convinced about that. With the humidity, it can be a challenge also for the ball. You get such wet, sweaty hands that to try and keep it dry, to get it to reverse, can be very challenging. And also the nature of the surface is quite dark, so that ball gets pretty dirty pretty quickly, and by the end of the day's play, you'll have a look at these players' outfits. They'll be disgustingly dirty.
Bad lights issue here, Polly?
It is. I actually might send a tweet out there that I reckon this should be the ping ball test. Don't play it under lights. Just play normal hours of play. Start at 10, but start with a ping ball, because then you can turn the lights on and we'll have no issue whatsoever with bad light.
The forward-thinking Sean Pollard. Let's have a look at the weather over this test match. Forecast pretty good, actually. There's possibility of some showers, but in general, yes, happy?
Yeah, it's moved. It was originally about 10 days ago, it was Friday chance of rain, then it moved to Saturday chance of rain, and now you can see on Sunday and maybe Monday there might be a chance of rain. But that looks pretty set fair, and not too strong a breeze today, but tomorrow and the next day it's going to be a challenge for one of the ends for the bowlers.
I've been thinking a bit about Pat Cummins, the Australian who made such an impact here as an 18-year-old. Enormously strong guy, fully fit again, had an impact on the Ashes. Is this sort of surface going to sap him? Is these conditions going to sap him?
The conditions will sap you with the humidity, and that is the challenge for the bowlers, but I don't think the actual pitch surface will sap him. I think he'd have experienced something very similar in Australia on some of their pitches there. He won't get as much assistance as we saw him in his debut at the Wanderers, where he was just lethal and really sort of announced himself on that international scene.
All right, now look at this. If we can pick up a shot here of Steve Smith, just down at the pavilion end of the ground. He's ready for the toss. Australian blazer on and just getting himself into a zone, Graham. Is this a nervous moment for a captain?
It's a tense moment. There's a lot of build-up, I think, for Australia. They haven't toured as well of late, so this is a big series for him as captain, not only from a batting perspective, but leading his team. Can he get his team over the line here? Can they improve? I think world cricket, the team that can tour well these days is rightly the #1 team in the world. We saw South Africa dominate the Test series against India, and I think we were all excited for this, and he's going to play a big role if Australia are to win in South Africa.
We're going to have to move slightly out of the way because the toss is going to happen here in a second, so let's make our way back up to this end of the pitch. Steve's form has been unbelievable, Sean. How difficult is it to sustain that over long periods?
I mean, we've watched from a distance, haven't we? He initially burst on the scene as a leg spinner, maybe batting in the middle order, but he really has announced himself, and that average of his is unbelievable. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes, and to sustain it is the challenge. I think they've had a nice break, didn't play some of the T20s, being able to come over here, acclimatise early, get themselves set, and you would expect him to be back to normal business. Just 4 Test matches to go to the end of the season, and no reason why he can't, but it's been spectacular to watch.
Well, I think the South Africans would have spent a lot of time planning against him because they think if they can control him, they can control this Australian batting lineup. As we
he's
get a
smiling at us. He can hear us now because he's moved up to this end of the ground.
We're getting into him.
There's a lot of players use kind of a visualization thing now. I saw David Warner out here earlier. I saw Faf out here earlier, just standing in the crease and getting the feel for the conditions. Long gone are the days where you turned up in your suit half an hour before play, slipped your whites on and went out and had a hit.
Yeah, I know. It's a big mental game these days. I mean, the amount of cricket, the amount of video footage you have on players. So there's a lot of planning and preparation that goes into these Test matches. A lot of people at home wouldn't even know. They just see the team rock up here, play the game. But the training sessions, the thinking that goes into your batting, he would have watched hours of footage of the South African bowlers thinking, how are they going to bowl at me? What are they going to do? How are they going to attack me? And how am I going to take them on? And that's what's wonderful. The contest in sport, that's what I loved.
Now, finally, we've got Faf du Plessis making his way down the steps from the dressing room and out to the middle. So we'll be having the toss in a short while. Faf's injury, does that set him back, that month not having had competitive cricket?
I think it definitely does. I mean, he had an injury before he came back for the India series. He missed out on the Test match against Zimbabwe, and then not having played much cricket at all, he was thrown into the equation of that cauldron of 3 Test matches against India. Once again, he batted here the last time he did. He got 100 in the ODI that South Africa played against India, but then having played no cricket since, it will be a little bit challenging for him.
Yeah, I think if he wasn't such an integral part of this team from a leadership perspective and a character, I don't think he would have played this Test match. I don't think his finger's 100%, but he's finding a way to get out and bat and contribute. So he's going to play a key role in this series from a South African perspective.
Michael Holding will be conducting the toss. It's just an early word there from Faf and Steve. There'll be a great mutual, I think, appreciation of each other's talents and equally of the kind of cricket that 2 teams try to play.
Yeah, it will be, and there'll be appreciation for what they've both achieved. Obviously, youngish leaders. They've only been around for a few years, and they'll be obviously pretty nervous at this stage. I think more interest from Steve Smith will be to what the South Africans have decided to do team-wise. He's got the sheet now, so he'll know what the South African team is, and Australia announced their side just a couple of days ago.
All right, well, Jeff Crow, the match referee, is there. Michael Holding is there and ready to go.
Yes, I certainly am. Everyone is ready for the toss. Finally, the mascot is also here, Zach. I've got both captains. Faf du Plessis, South Africa's captain. Steve Smith, Australia's captain. Former New Zealand cricketer Jeff Crow, the match referee. Faf, all yours. Heads is the call.
Heads it is, Australia.
That was quick, Steve. Like the look of this pitch?
Yeah, it's pretty hard. I think it might skid on and slow up as the game goes on. So hopefully we can post a big first innings total and put them under a bit of pressure.
Everybody's talking about South Africa, Australia, similar pitches. Is this what you expected to see?
Well, I think they can be similar, yeah. I just think this one's probably not going to have the pace and carry that some other wickets do. So I think skid on and slow up as the game goes on and maybe take a little bit of turn later on as well.
With the pitch as it is, there has been talk that you have not changed your team from Sydney 7 weeks ago. Looking at this pitch now, same thoughts?
Yeah, same team. Give those guys some confidence. Obviously, the summer worked out really well for us. We played some really good cricket, and as I said in the presser, I think conditions are pretty similar in South Africa to Australia. So, good opportunity for these guys to keep working hard and keep building as a team.
You're going well at the moment, and of course, past history says that Australia do well in South Africa. Should be fairly confident.
Yeah, hopefully we can keep that up. But look, South Africa are a quality side, play very good here at home, and we're going to have to be at our best if we're going to get on top of them in this series.
Okay, Steve, good luck.
Cheers.
Faf, the pitch, what you would have loved to have done? Bat first, or are you happy in the field?
Yeah, I think we also look to have a bat first, just the nature of the slowness of the wicket. But in saying that, there will be an opportunity this morning to try and get some wickets. A little bit of green grass cover here, and also might spin. You know, the sticky turn on day one sometimes always play a role.
What about your team? Have any surprises?
We've gone with 7 batters, just a real solid batting lineup. So looking forward to putting some runs on the board.
That was the talk. We heard rumours about getting an extra batter into the team. Why was that thought?
Yeah, just the nature of the wicket here. You know, your spinner can play a bit of a role. So Kesh, he's a guy that can bowl lots and lots and lots of overs. So he obviously takes that workload that an extra bowler would. And then your seamers just operate from the other side. So we just felt, especially against this Australian bowling lineup, trying to get a nice solid batting lineup against them. And if we can put runs on the board, we know with our bowlers we can put pressure on them.
And of course, South Africa have not been beating Australia in your own country. Time for that to change, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing stat that Australia has never beaten us at home and we've never beaten them. But I mean, it's a great opportunity for us as this team. We want to go places, and that's obviously a place that we haven't been before. So we're really looking forward to that challenge.
Okay, Faf, good luck.
Thank you very much.
The situation is that South Africa have lost the toss. Australia are won the toss, and they'll be batting first.
Right, let's have a look at the two teams. Just working out who we've got first. Let's go first to the Australian team. Alan Border joins us. Just couldn't, I tell you what, we had a bit of sun come onto the monitor and it was hard to pick up which team we were showing first. The Australian side then completely as expected, and a fantastic toss to win, isn't it?
Oh, I think so. I mean, like in most test matches, you like to bat first. There might be a little bit there early on, as you would expect. There's a little bit of grass covering, but a good toss to win, get runs on the board early and then see how it develops from there.
And any, I don't know if the word pressure is right, but we had a chat earlier about Cameron Bancroft. Is there pressure on him, do you think?
Oh, I think so. There's always pressure, isn't there? You play under pressure at Test cricket level. He's had some success early on and then has been struggling of late. But, you know, he's a quality player. He should enjoy these conditions. It's a good fast bowling attack that he's going to be up against. So, but it's a key component, isn't it? If your openers do well, the batting lineup can flow from there.
The selectors had a fantastic summer at home prior to the Ashes, with 1 or 2 surprises working out very well. Guys, for example, like Tim Payne, the recall of Sean Marsh, and those guys have the confidence of an Ashes win behind them.
Well, that's right. I mean, they should be very confident in the red ball cricket. The Ashes series is sensational. On the back of quality fast bowling, I have to say, and Nathan Lyon's role as a spinner. But the batting lineup has to fire and hunt more as a pack. It can't just rely on Stephen Smith.
OK, let's turn our attention to the South Africans, Graham, and the... Well, is it a surprise? I don't know. That a lot of people thought that Tennis to Brain might get into the side, and they just want to lengthen the batting.
Yeah, I mean, I think batting is going to be key in the series, is attacking bowling lineups on both sides of the fence. I think whichever lineup can actually post totals, get their teams into the game and allow their bowlers to do the work, I think is going to be the successful one. It is the decision I would have made if I was within that environment to lengthen the batting. I think there's a lot of question marks over Quinton de Kock's form. He's struggled throughout the Indian tour. You know, also a couple of guys that are coming back from injury. AB's had a few injuries. You know, Faf's got a finger issue, and we don't know how he's going to go with the bat. So I think it was the right decision. Temba Bavuma's still out with his fingers, so Tennis de Brain comes in. I think there's enough firepower in the bowling department with the 3 seamers, and I think on this surface, Maharaj is going to play much more of a role, bowl a lot more overs, so that I don't think it was necessary to carry that extra bowler.
And you go with that, Sean?
Yeah, I do. I think Tennis Brain will come at number 6. I think Quinton will be at 7. The challenge for South Africa is just with the 3 bowlers. De Brain will bowl your overs, so maybe like 5 or 10 overs in the innings of the little seamers. He's been working hard on that. And he comes into this match with some good form from the domestic stuff. In SuperSport series, he's got some big scores. I think he got 190. And he also played against Australia for the A side in Benoni. So he'll be pretty settled, raring to go. I think the big challenge will be what can South Africa do first on the surface. If they can make the early breakthroughs, pick up those initial wickets, things will be fine. Otherwise, they're going to really rely on the performance of Maharaj.
OK, so let's go to the dressing room now and imagine. Alan Border and I agree that this is a great toss for Australia to win and to bat first. How bad is it a toss for South Africa to have lost, and what will the dressing room be thinking?
Well, there's no doubt they would have wanted to bat first, because they would have thought, OK, then Kesha plays a massive role in the second and the fourth innings. But now they've got to be those spin doctors. I mean, as a captain and a coach, you have to be a spin doctor at times. Guys, if there's any movement in that surface, it's going to be initially up front. The new ball might work around, but get some early wickets, dominate this first session, get ourselves on top. And there's some guys who haven't had a hit. Warner has been out of touch. He didn't play in the practice game. He might be the one we can get Steve Smith in early. Let's see what we can do.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be focusing too much on the service, maybe what lines and lengths. They would have discussed that in their preparation. But I'd be more focused on making sure that we get our from a South African perspective, get yourself into the contest. Try and get into the game early on. There is going to be nerves on both sides. Let's control that. Maybe there's an opportunity, a soft dismissal, and you get 2 or 3 in this first session. I think also from my perspective, from a leadership, get Maharaj in the game early. Don't be scared to bowl him with the newer ball on the surface. The surface is dry, and he does control the game. And I don't think Australia are excellent players of spin. I think they've struggled away from home against spin.
All right, thank you very much, fellas. Fascinating setup in the build-up here to this first Test match, a series that everybody's been looking forward to. The news is that Steve Smith has won the toss. The Australians will bat first.
So alive, alive.
Another beautiful day here in Durban for this first Test match. It is day 1 with South Africa taking on Australia, and Australia have won the toss here in Durban, and they've elected to bat first. Great conditions, clear skies, and the crowd just starting to build up here in Durban. A lot of tour groups from Australia making their way over to South Africa for the 4-Test series. And as we can see here, a couple of the fans out there in the show, but I've got Michael Holding and Kepler Vessels. Good morning to you, Kepler. Mikey. Australia winning the toss and batting. Well, there was no hesitation there, was there, from Stephen Smith?
Absolutely none. As soon as he saw the head after he caught head, he said, we'll have a bat. And I can understand why, because the pitch doesn't look as if it's going to offer a lot of assistance to the fast bowlers. You know, both teams have fast bowlers. Which is a little bit disappointing. You know, now that I'm in the stands, BJ, I don't mind seeing balls flying all over the place. And that pitch doesn't look as if it's going to offer a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be tough work for the Australian bowlers. But what about South Africa, Kepler? You happy with that lineup, 7 batsmen?
Yeah, I am happy with it. They've gone back to that lineup that's been successful for them. They experimented a little bit playing the extra bowler. They played 5 bowlers for a while. It didn't quite work out for them. I think they're worried about the batting and the depth of the batting playing against Australia. So they've gone back with that lineup. Quinton de Kock probably at number 7. So they bat deep.
Yeah.
It is their best side, I think. Solid bowling attack as well. So from South Africa's point of view, probably the best combination I think they can come up with.
What about Mark on at the top of the order? Is that a bit of a pressure point for Australia and also for South Africa?
He started very well against easy opposition, Aiden Markram. Had a little bit of a struggle against India. Didn't really need to have the captaincy on his shoulders during that one-day series. It was a lot of pressure, but this will be a really big test for him. He's a good player at the top of the order. He's very solid. But the variety of the Australian attack will test him out.
What about South Africa's bowling lineup? We've got obviously Rabada and Morkel there as well, and Philander. Have they got the capacity to go through 5 days, given the fact they've gone with 7 batsmen?
I think they do. You know, they'll be hoping that Vernon Philander doesn't get any injury, because you know that Vernon has been a little bit susceptible to injuries in recent times. But I think that pitch will suit Vernon Philander a bit more than, say, Morne Morkel, because Morne Morkel usually depends on a bit of bounce. He has pitched the ball a lot fuller in recent times, but he still wants that ball to be bouncing. I think Vernon Philander will be skidding it off the surface, getting a bit of lateral movement. The slips will have to come up a bit, but he will get some movement off the seam. If I just add one little thing about Markram that I like, I know that Markram was under a lot of pressure, captain of the India team. I think now that he's not captain, that will ease some of the pressure. He can now just go back to batting, and having experienced that pressure, it will make things a little bit easier for him now.
All right, South Africa bowling first. How important is it to pick up David Warner early, especially for Philander? Is that the combination you're looking for?
Well, that contest is always a good one because David Warner really comes at Vernon Philander a lot more than the other top order batsmen around the world does. So that contest is one that we're looking out for. But he'll both all to left-handers, Vernon Philander, and of course, if they can pick him up early, it'll be a huge bonus because Australia, when Steve Smith scores runs, they look good, but they also do have a bit of fragility about that batting lineup.
Look, I agree with you, Kepler. I mean, I've always said that Stephen Smith and David Warner have been the backbone for Australian batting. In the last couple of years, when they've got runs, Australia has batted well. And also, I think it's a big test for Khawaja in this one, and also Bancroft at the top of the order, because they need to get off to a good start, those guys.
They definitely need to get off to a good start, because although people will say that this is not a long bowling lineup for South Africa, they're only playing 3 seamers. These guys can do a very good job. Rabada in particular, you know, I've been very skeptical about the amount of work that they have given to Rabada, but he has handled it. He has been able to go right through the entire day, bowl as fast in the last over of the day as he did in the first over. So these guys will manage once there are no injuries.
Well, Rabada in Australia kept 15 wickets. He looked really good and solid. He picked up Stephen Smith twice in that series. So that's going to be another big battle.
Well, it will be a big battle. And also Stephen Smith hasn't scored as many against South Africa as he scored against other countries of late. So it's a challenge for him too. But I think the other thing we can't underestimate is the role of the 2 spinners. Keshav Maharaj for South Africa. He's done really well for South Africa over a period of time. In a way, surprisingly so, because he has done better than we thought he would. So he's a real factor there. And then, of course, Nathan Lyon for Australia. And on this pitch, as it gets slower, it'll turn a little bit on day 4. So the spinners will play a big role too.
All right, enjoyed your thoughts, gentlemen. Let's hand you over to Mike Hazeman for his analysis about the bowling from South Africa.
Thanks, BJ. I want to just show something today. We've got 2 magnificent high-octane speed attacks. Now, one of the things that concerns me about when you're watching high-octane sport is you don't get the real feel of how quick things happen. I mean, ice hockey's one. That happens on lightning. You've got cricket, I think, at times. You sit back and you watch cricket replays, and from your lounge room, you don't quite get the idea of how quick these guys are. The other one is something that Formula One. I mean, that's a prime example. You don't see how quick those cars go. When you go to the live events, it's a different story. I've got a video here I want to show. This is Mitchell Starc, and he's bowling to Usman Khawaja. Now, this is in the nets in Adelaide a few months ago, and I think that gives a real indication of how quick guys are and how difficult it can be to face these guys who are bowling so briskly. Okay, let's have a look at what I've prepared here on the touch screen now, and I'm going to show you how quick these guys are. Right, so let's get into this. I've got all the really quick guys on the screen right now. And I've got some marks there, and the 2 marks are the average speed is the blue we've seen over the last little while. Now, this is over the last series and also, of course, the South Africans this series. And the red is the top speed. So Starc is lightning, Cummins is lightning, Hazelwood is lightning. So just to highlight that, I mean, this line I've drawn here, this one here, I call it the red line. It's 145 k's per hour, and that's when a fear factor comes into play. When guys get past that, as Starc has, as Cummins has, as Hazelwood, now that's interesting, as he has, that's when it gets a little bit toey, I guess, for the batsman, and only the very best can play those guys. Let me continue, and let's see where Rabada ends up. Let's see where Ngidi ends up, and also Morkel. He might surprise you a little bit. So let's have a look at this. We're going to add those as well, and you'll see that Rabada is there. He's right there. So Rabada's speeds are outstanding, so he's matching the Australians. You also see Ngidi's past 145, so that's quick enough, but Morkel's a little bit lower. But the Australians have got the edge when it comes to the pace, but Rabada is such a class act, it might be a whole different deal. So how does that translate? So what I've got now is, this is in real time, by the way, if the guys are facing Rabada. Look at that, real time. Helmet cam view in real time, and also Mitchell Starc. Left armour, that's another variation as well. So in real time, it's really tough to face these guys when they're bowling this quickly. The other thing I want to have a look at now, and I just want to point out a couple of things here as well. So what we've got, reaction time. This is going to be important. Only the very best can react against this sort of speed. Reaction time's there, the speed's here, and also here we've got the various balls, Cummins, Rabada, Hazelwood, Ngidi, Morkel, those guys. So their speeds and reaction time. So let's have a look and see how we go along. So 0.4 for Stark, 0.41 for Cummins at top speed, Rabada 0.41, Hazelwood 0.42, Ngidi 0.43, and Morkel 0.44. So that's really quick stuff. So reaction time, and I want to find you some sort of comparison that you can look at, pardon the pun, the blink of an eye. This is life in the fast lane for the batsmen throughout this series. Stark bouncer, 155 k's per hour. Time for a blink of an eye is no time. So you've got 0.4 seconds. You've got three decisions. First one is probably your own safety. Then you've got to decide how you're going to score a shot. Then you're going to try and preserve your wicket. And then, of course, you just want to make sure you look good against these guys and you don't appear in any way to be concerned about it. Right, so there's a look at how quick these guys are, how good they are. I just want to leave you, before I go back to BJ, leave you with this again. This is what it's going to be like for some of these guys.
Thanks, Hazy. Well, no doubt that Mitchell Stark would love it if that pitch is going to play like that, gentlemen. But, Kepler, I'll come to you. The sea breeze has just started to move in. That may make a bit of difference, do you think?
Oh, I think it's a batting day, actually. I think the breeze you're talking about now is more the batting breeze. It doesn't generally do too much when this breeze is blowing. When that northeasterly comes in, it swings a bit. So batting day, so I think the first hour it might do a bit, but as we expect it to in a test match. But after that, it's going to settle down pretty quickly into a good batting surface.
Rabada could be the key. Early this morning here, Mikey, I know Mike Haysom was talking about pace and bounce. Is there a bit of pressure on him to get that to around 145?
I don't think so. I think when he runs in and he realises the surface on which he's playing, he'll have to realise exactly what he has to do. If your pitch isn't offering a lot of pace and bounce, you don't try and fight the pitch.
Yep.
You just bowl according to the conditions. I think it's going to be very important that they make use of this new ball. As Kep said, after this new ball gets a little bit older, it's going to be easy batting. So with a little bit of grass, a nice proud seam, make use of that new ball, get into the batting order, get into the middle order as quickly as you can.
Can South Africa get that ball to reverse?
They can. They've been better at that lately, and the pitch is quite abrasive. So they can. It will be something they'll be looking for right almost from the word go, to work on the ball and get it going by about over 35-40.
I love what Graham Smith said about getting maybe Maharaja into the bowling quite early, especially with David Warner. I wouldn't say that he's not very good against spin, but he loves the quicks with a new ball. Better.
Yeah, and Keshav Bharaj's got good players out, so he bowls well to good players, and he might get a little bit of spin early today because there's still a bit of moisture there.
How important is this series to get off to a good start for South Africa?
Very important for both teams, but more so for South Africa. Australia have been beating South Africa here ever since 1970.
That's right, haven't lost since 1970.
Exactly. So South Africa don't want to be starting off on a day and thinking to themselves, well, here we go again. They have got to start positive. They have got to have a good day today, and that will lift the team going forward.
Very good points, Michael Holding, and also Kepler Vessels here on the first day of this opening test match with Australia taking on South Africa. And just to reconfirm, Australia have won the toss and they have elected to bat first. And South Africa have gone to this lineup with 7 batsmen, de Kock coming in at number 7. As we get set now for the national anthems on day 1 of this first test match here in Durban. So that completes the national anthems here on day one of this first test match. It is a wonderful setting here in Durban with the sea breeze just making its way in. And Australia have won the toss and they have elected to bat first. The crowd just starting to build up nicely. A lot of tour groups from Australia have made their way over to South Africa for this opening test match. And even on a school day, we can appreciate the additions of plenty of school children as well. As I said, the Australian tour groups as well. South Africa getting themselves set. Faf du Plessis, the captain, rallying the troops here. Morne Morkel and Kengiso Rabada will no doubt open the bowling for South Africa.